Where we're headed here is our TheraBand arms, and I'm going to combine a couple. You got one workout where you're seated without that half ball. I'm going to show you a few of those arm things on the half ball that you also have, but we're going to do all of that seated. So we're going to combine two of those arm work series, and I think I'm trying to remember. Oh, yes. So this one is labeled TheraBand arms and abs, and seated arm work and back extension on the half ball. So we're going to combine those two. The most important thing about your TheraBands, hopefully we don't flick ourselves. So if you can get it wide and go around the arch, that's going to give you a little bit more security than if it starts to roll up. So we're going to try to keep it wide on the feet. Now you're going to notice a lot of your arm work is done in a very straight back. This is a space where typically for you, it's best to be on blocks. And I'm going to demonstrate that a little bit later. But when I was watching you move, it's going to give us a little extra wiggle space, a little extra range of motion in the hip joint, so we can focus on tall back. So the first one, I'm not going to do on blocks because I got to roll down, but you might do this seated on blocks. You have the opportunity to, with your TheraBand, to make it as hard or not as hard as you like. The closer you crank to the feet, the more resistance you're going to get, and also depending on the TheraBand that you're using. So our first round here is just to sit tall. We're going to flex our feet, and when we're sitting tall, we're careful to notice back. So I imagine I have a wall here, but I see a lot happen, especially when we're doing all this work in the upper body as all our energy is up there, that we start to arch forward and we get a big arch in our back. What I'd like you to think is your back bottom rib would press into a wall while you draw your belly in. Big difference than sitting right on top of those sits bones arching versus if you watch that rib cage, back rib cage area, I'm going to draw my belly in and I'm going to sink into those sits bones while my back bottom rib is pressing into an imaginary wall. So long spine here, thumbs up as you're holding onto your TheraBand. We're just going to do a bicep curl. We resist letting it come back down. So we're working in both directions. I'll make mine a little bit easier. We're going to draw in and release. My elbows don't get to pump up and down. They stay put. I'm going to draw in and release. When elbows pump up and down, we're trying to use other muscle instead of bicep. We're going to exhale, draw in. Inhale, so belly's drawing in still. We've got that back bottom rib pressing against that imaginary wall behind us. We're drawing in and resisting, letting it extend. That's going to build both directions. In the meantime, we've got our shoulders out of our ears. We're using muscle, rotator cuff muscle, to draw those shoulders back and down instead of letting them round forward or creep up. Let's do two more here. And then we'll exhale, draw in. At any point while you're holding on to the TheraBand, if it gets a little tricky for fingers, just pull them on out and do a little bit of piano fingers. We're going to get ready to roll up and roll down. Now, we might think that this TheraBand is going to help. It will help a little bit, but we would actually like to engage the arms a little bit to make it more of a full body integration. So we start by inhaling here upright. We're going to exhale. We take as much time as we can to slowly roll down. The head is going to touch. We're going to lift head and shoulders and exhale, roll up. Now it's going to be tempting to do your bicep curl. If you need that, do it. But if you can keep your scoop to rise up to lengthen with straight arms, that would be a better roll up for core work. We're going to exhale, scoop, roll back. We'll rest that head. We're going to lift head and shoulders, trying to engage those abs to slowly roll up. We're keeping a slightly rounded back until we feel those sits bones, those sharp points in your glutes to rise back up into a straight back. This rising back up into a straight back, going to work those back extensors, start to build some back muscle. We're going to scoop and roll back. We rest that head, shoulders are open. Exhale, roll up. And what I see a lot is that we cave in through that chest. That makes us weigh less. If we can keep those collarbones open as we rise up, we're a bit in that C curve. We're going to lengthen up and through that spine. We can keep those shoulders down. It's more work. We're going to scoop and roll back. Belly's drawing in on that exhale. We pause here. We lift head and shoulders. We're gonna exhale, roll back up. Until we get to those sharp points of the sits bones, we restack the spine. We feel that length through the spine. We're gonna scoop and roll back. Resting that head. And then we're gonna exhale, roll back up. I am working my way to the back of my mat. You're gonna see me bend my knees. This is also an option for you. I'm super tight right now in my low back. And so I can feel that that's creating a little bit of tension in my low back, this roll up. We're gonna exhale, roll up. So even if you do bend knees, you can lengthen still here at the top through that spine. Exhale, scoop and roll back. Straight legs or soft, bent knees. We're gonna lift head and shoulders. We're gonna exhale, roll back up. Let's do 2 more here. Exhale, scoop and roll back. Resting head, lift head and shoulders. Exhale, roll back up. This next one, we're gonna stay down there. So you might get a little bit more distance here between the feet and the hands. As you roll down, you're gonna see me straighten my legs in order to do this next one. This next one is done with head resting, and we're really paying attention to shoulder blades. So I wanna press my shoulder blades in without popping my rib cage. So I wanna make sure my rib cage is still as best negotiated here as possible. I have a really bad arch in my back, so it's hard for me to get my bottom rib cage down without my shoulders rounding forward. So we're gonna negotiate a space. We're gonna exhale, draw the elbows out to the sides, resist letting hands then slide right back down by your side. We're gonna exhale, draw elbows. This is just solely work here. I'm looking at my little list for you. We're gonna exhale. Ooh, I'm oohing because the next one's hard. That's 3. We're gonna exhale. Resisting 4. Exhale. Resist 5. This is a good place to really focus on belly too. So as we're exhaling, belly is always drawing in. Inhale, it can release. That's 6. Exhale, or we might be able to keep it engaged the whole time. 7, one more time. Exhale. 8. I want you to be careful on this next one. If shoulders are fired up or you've been playing your instrument a lot, don't do this one. Exclude this one because it's going to fire your shoulders up big, big, big time. So if you had a lot of practice this week, maybe exclude it. Otherwise, thumbs up, and we're just going to try to pull those arms to the ceiling and we lower back down. So we're going to exhale, straight arms lift and lower 2. Exhale and lower 3. Exhale. Lower 4, 4 more. We're taking these. You can do 8 or 10 of all of these. If we're doing them well, we don't need to do more than 8 or 10. Exhale and lower. 2 more. Those make my arms burn. We're going to exhale, lift and lower. 1 more. Exhale and lower. Take it slow here. We're going to start to slide the knees in. This is where it has flicking potential. We're going to send those legs straight up towards the ceiling. I'm going to take a second just to give a little bit of piano fingers. And then I'm going to take and reach up as close as I can to my feet, but then draw my arms back down to rest here on the floor. So this actually, finally, TheraBand makes something a little bit easier. This is our double leg lower you see in your mat core work. We're going to inhale to lower the legs. And we're going to exhale, slowly lift them back up. This idea here of working that lowest, deepest layer, transversus abdominis, exhale to lift back up. We're going to inhale, lower down. Exhale, lift back up. Let's do 4 more. Inhale, lower. Now I'm not going very far, even with the TheraBand. My legs weigh a lot more than my upper body. If you're more evenly matched in torso length or weight in the upper body and lower body, you might go lower than me. Let's do this last 2 series here. So I'm judging by my back bottom rib, trying not to arch my back or poop my belly. That's why they're not going very far. Once they come back up towards the ceiling, I'm going to take and think about my palms turning down. I'm still gripping with my fists, but my palms turn down. I'm going to do some tricep pressing. So I'm just using those legs in the air as my resistance. I can crank up or have less resistance depending on how hard I want to work here. I'm going to press straight down and resist letting them come back up. So while this is a tricep press, we're going to work a little bit of chest muscle too. We're going to press down and resist. Now, inclination is going to be to try to shift the fists. If we can keep palms down, that's where we're aiming, instead of letting them rotate so thumbs would be up. 4 more of these. We're going to exhale, press. Inhale, resist. We're doing our best too to keep a straight blade to your wrist, to try not to let that wrist bend. 2 more. Press and resist. 1 more. Press. Resist. Now, a fun one here, if you're really tight in the hamstrings, it's nice to pull in. Go ahead, carefully let your TheraBand come out. We're going to roll to our side. So this is the best way to treat that back. We're going to press up, and that way we're not rolling up and down. We could use those abs, couldn't we? But we're not gonna. All right. So this is where you see on your sheet my pad stick art with a seated position we talked about here at the beginning of this video. For you, it's a little better for you to be seated on something when we're trying to have that straight spine. It gives you, excuse me, just a little bit more range of motion. We're back to thick TheraBand around the arches of the foot. I'm going to walk fairly close to my feet. So this now starts to become back extensors, obliques, and some arm work, more of a full body integration. And the idea is I'm going to leave one hand right where it is, and I'm going to draw the other hand back while I try to twist without leaning back or rounding. And I'm going to alternate sides. So I'm going to exhale. I'm twisting as if I'm twisting from my tailbone to the top of my head. Inhale, resisting as I let that arm straighten and come out of the twist. Exhale, twist. This is one of my favorites for spine and coming back through center. Just sitting tall, we know, is hard work. But now we're twisting. One side is stretching. The other extensor side is contracting. We're building a lot of strength here. Exhale. We're also getting more tricep and bicep, because why not? And coming back through center. We're going to twist and coming back through center. Now we assume every exhale belly is drawing in. That belly drawing in is helping get that deepest layer. We're going to exhale, twist, and come back through center. Exhale, twist, and center. Exhale, twist, and center. Now you could do this in your office chair. You could just slide that TheraBand around the feet on the floor and do a little bit of twisting too. So you don't always have to get on the ground and make some specific, 20-minute allotment here for arm work. Some of this you could just do if you have a break between consultation calls. I know you're very busy, but if you're trying to work a little bit of this in your work day, it's a nice way to do it. We've got one more set to do. Twisting on the exhale, inhale, allowing that to come forward. We're going to take it off of those feet. Now, I'm going to have you continue to sit long, strong, and straight because we're emphasizing back strength. If the back is ever getting tired, you can sit crisscross. So if you've done a lot of back work or back extension and the back is tired, we give the back a break by sitting crisscross. But for this one, we're going to see if we can slide that TheraBand around us like we're putting on a scarf or a pashmina. And then we're going to do something called hug retreat. So I'm hanging on, it's sliding down my palm. I have my thumbs up, and I want to make sure it's secure around my back. I'm going to reach out. It's called hug retreat because it's like we're coming in for a hug. Or I think of that toy that's a monkey that symbol monkey that's slamming together. Apparently I have a hard time saying that. If possible, we're gonna keep the legs straight. We're gonna straight through the spine, but not overarch the back. We've got that back pushing into an imaginary wall. We have as much or as little resistance as we want here. Elbows don't change. We're gonna exhale, draw those hands together. Inhale, open back out. We're gonna exhale, let's do all 10 of these. These are large muscle groups here, biceps, pecs, pec major, pec minor. So we can do a few more. We're gonna exhale. While we're doing this, we're as long and as tall as we can be. Head is neutral, resting on those shoulders without tension. Let's do 5 more. Exhale and release. Exhale and release. Exhale, release. Exhale. Release. We're going to let everything come on down. This time we do get to sit a little bit of crisscross. I'm actually going to turn towards you. You'll still be on blocks, or now we're shifting to the sheet that you have or the workout that you have that is on your half ball. But we'll do it again on half ball when I record that one, but I wanted to show it in case you want to include any extra arm work or extra core work. So we're going to take our TheraBand and we're aiming for palms down. You can do a couple of things. You can walk those hands closer or further apart. More range of motion further apart, but a little easier to send it apart. So we want to be careful to make it as challenging as it makes sense. The other thing we're doing is we're sending that arm straight out from the shoulder, but shoulders are melting down. We're back to belly drawing in and a long, tall spine. So even sitting crisscross, we're still got that long, tall spine. Wrists don't bend. We're going to exhale. We're going to draw it apart and resist letting it come back together. Exhale, draw and resist 2. Exhale. And 3. Now you could also pulse here. You can pulse as fast as you want. 4, or this longer, what I call harder, because you're resisting. 5, arm work. Now you're going to want to bend elbows. You're going to let arms sink. If we can, keep them high and straight arms. 3 more. Out. And resisting in. 2 more. Out. And resist. 1 more. Out. Resist. Give them a quick break. Again, those are going to be a bit on fire. We're going to get ready to hinge forward. So I'm going to turn sideways. This assumes you're on blocks or your half ball. The half ball is just nice to sit on. It's a little more comfy than your blocks. You can have straight legs on this one. I'm going to sit crisscross. We're going to send it a little bit wider. So I have my hands fairly close. We're going to go a little bit wider. We're going to send it out in front of us. The hinge is the important part here. So I'm doing all my good things. I'm drawing my belly in, pressing my back bottom rib against the wall behind me, this imaginary wall, but then I'm going to hinge forward. And what tends to happen is people just arch, and that doesn't really activate a lot of back muscle. So if we hinge forward comfortably, we keep that bottom rib pressing into an imaginary wall that traveled with us. We're going to lift the arms and lower them down. Now, in addition, what's hard to see is I'm actually trying to pull my TheraBand apart. I'm going to inhale left, exhale lower. You can go full range of motion. You can grip with this and lower. 3. Inhale left. We're in that hinge, belly drawing in. 4. We're pulling that TheraBand apart while we do this one. 5. And at some point, it feels like the TheraBand weighs about 50 pounds. 6. Inhale. 7. Inhale. Lower 8. 2 more. Keep pulling it apart. Lower 9. 1 more. And lower 10. Take a break. Maybe give those arms a little wiggle, a little shake. I'm going to turn to face you again so you can see this next one. A favorite. Ooh, if we ever want to work really hard, this one, I like this one for the work that you have to do playing your instrument too. We're going to take, and we have the TheraBand over the palms. We're going to tuck our elbows right into our rib cage, like we're trying to hold on to our purse so nobody will steal it. So our elbows don't get to leave the rib cage. Closer hands, more resistant. Hands further away, less resistance. We're going to grow long and tall through that spine. I want to make sure I'm doing the right one. Oh, well, all right, we'll do the next one after we set ourselves up. I got a little out of order. We'll do the side reach, this walkity here in just a second. So shoulders melt down, elbows draw in. We're gonna try to pull that apart and resist letting it come back together. Straight blades to the wrists and resist 2. We pull apart and resist 3. Pull apart, resist forward, pull apart, resist 5, pull apart, resist 6, pull apart, resist 7, pull apart, resist 8, pull apart, resist 9. One more time, pull apart, resist 10. Take a second, wiggle it. We're going to take, this one is actually first in your list there. We're going to take and have a seat on one end of your TheraBand securely. So our glutes are going to hold that in place. And then I like to toss my TheraBand out at an angle. Again, you might be sitting with tall, long legs. You might be sitting crisscross. You might be on your half ball seated comfortably, or your half ball might be upside down, challenging your core balance. Once you have that TheraBand out at an angle, take thumbs down to grab hold of it. And I'm going to walk it fairly close to my hip structure. So the whole time I would see the back of your hand if you were facing me. You're going to keep trying. The body loves to turn the thumb up, but we want to keep the thumb down. The other thing we're going to try not to do is lift the arm above the height of the shoulder. It stays lower than the shoulder to work these specific rotator cuff muscles. So when you're ready, you're going to lift and lower. So we have our long, tall spine, belly in, that long, tall spine, building back muscle, even while we're doing arm work. We're going to exhale, lift and lower. I'm going to lighten mine up. We're going to exhale, lift and lower. You can go as light as you like, as long as that fist doesn't get higher than that shoulder. We have 5 more to go. Exhale, lift and lower. 4 more. Exhale and lower. 3 more. Exhale, lower. 2 more. Exhale, lower. Last time. Exhale, lower down. Give that shoulder a good little roll. We're going to switch it over or thread it through. So I'm just coming off of my glutes, totally off of that TheraBand. Toss it out at an angle. We're going to do thumbs down to grab hold of TheraBand pretty close to your hip. Thumb stays down, back of the hand aims towards the screen. When you're ready, you're going to lift and release. Lift, aiming with pinky, resisting as that thumb comes back down. Exhale, 3. Exhale, resist 4. Exhale, resist 5. Exhale, 6. Exhale, 7. Exhale, 8. Exhale, 9. One more time. Exhale, 10. Go ahead and release those shoulders. We're going to take that TheraBand out. I'm actually going to turn away from you so you can see what's happening with my hands, and I'll try to cue you on the correct arm here. We're going to start with what looks like my right arm, not your right arm. So we're going to hang on to that TheraBand in our right hand. And we have enough length that it can travel down our back. So I'm going to send it up towards the ceiling. It's in my right hand and it comes behind my neck. My left hand goes low and begins to walk up my back. And I'm trying my best to get my fingers as close as they'll go to each other. Now, you're seeing the opposite for me, which is my right hand, and I don't have a lot of range of motion on my dominant hand. What you can include beyond this stretch is looking away from that elbow that's in the air and looking down at the opposite shoulder. So it's a nice stretch to hold as long as you like, anytime during the day. This is why I would keep a TheraBand by your desk. This is a great stretch if you had to spend a lot of time on the phone, especially with a cricked head, or if you've been on your computer a lot. We're going to switch sides. So it just goes in that other hand. That other hand goes high, comes to hang out behind the neck. And we start to walk those fingers closer and closer together. As much or as close as you can get it comfortably. And then we look away from the underarm that's in towards the ceiling or aiming towards the ceiling. We look down at that opposite shoulder. Now, if the upper trapezius isn't very tight, you're not going to feel this a whole lot. If it's tight, you're going to feel this a whole lot. When you're ready, again, you can hold that as long or as little as you like. We're going to release, and I always call it the bird wings. Give them a little bit of bird. And then the last stretch that we'll do is we're going to take that TheraBand and we're going to spread it out. The goal here, when we bend our elbows, is that we get some stretch through the front of the chest. If you're not feeling a lot of stretch as we bend the elbows and drop behind our head, you want to get a little bit closer, hands a little bit closer on that TheraBand. So the idea here, reach up, slide that TheraBand behind you. I'm also pushing, and it's hard to see here, but I'm pushing my fist towards the wall behind me. And I'm going to rise back up and let it come forward for a full release. Lift it, spread it, and bend. You can do this as much or as little as you want as well. It's one of my favorite stretches when I taught yoga. So we're trying to spread it apart, send it back. You can also do it without the elbow bend. It just goes a little bit wider. You send it back with straight arms and forward. When you finish everything, take a few moments to do some hand stretches. So we've been gripping. I'm going to just take one palm and press gently. So I'm pressing my arm into the palm rather than my palm pressing into those fingers. So I'm just going to press gently and then switch sides. And then one of my favorite stretches, and I think we looked at this one when we did our little consultation, is to think about leaning in. So I have my thumbs looking at each other, and then I'm going to dial each one of those out. And mine can turn so fingers are towards me, but some folks get about halfway. Go where it makes sense. I start at fingertips. I keep my elbows slightly softened as I try to place my palms down, and then I peel my fingers off. And slightly soften elbows as I try to place my palms down. Doesn't work for me. And peel my fingers off. So that's a nice stretch to do. And then we swing them back around and let them look at each other. And then I try to play all 5, 10 fingers. And I'm just going to take and turn the backs of my hands towards the floor. Very gentle pressure, very gentle. Just until you start to feel a stretch through the forearm. So we're not trying to shove them in there. And you can always give them a good little shake out. There's our TheraBand arms. You will see that series again, or half of that series again when we're on the half ball.